Hello, friends. Welcome to Coding Garden. Welcome to our weekly discussion stream. So today's topic is what was your first programming language? So we're going to hear from the community to hear what your first programming language was and talk about it and such. And then we're also going to do the weekly code challenge. And this week's weekly code challenge was a CSS Battle. If you're interested in these things like the weekly challenge and weekly discussion topic, it's all happening over on the Discord. So we have this channel called Weekly Challenge. Like I said, last week's weekly challenge, which we're going to be doing today, was to solve this CSS battle. So we essentially need to recreate this using only CSS. So we'll be doing that later on. And then we're also going to be talking about what was your first programming language. So we have some interesting responses here in the Discord, but I'd also love to hear from you in the Twitch chat, or if you're watching this afterwards, let us know in the YouTube comments as well. This is going to be a fun one. We're going to be reminiscing about when we started, and hopefully also providing some insight into people that are learning to code or trying to pick their first programming language. Maybe this can help them a little bit to hear what everyone has to say. But it's also going to be a trip down memory lane. So welcome in, everyone. Glad to see you all. And let's say hi. Let's say hi. If you'd like to say hi to me, you can say any one of these words. Hi, hello, hey, yo, cheers, greetings, hi, what's up, morning, afternoon, evening, howdy, good day. Say any one of those things. I will acknowledge you. I'll say hello right back. And what's up? Crazy Vulcan, good to see you. And Limotes, hello. What's up, Limor and Ched Dev and Zelino and Oscar and Tibish and Mark Boots and Eddie and Gio was here and Irosum and Informatique, good to see you. What's up, Brooks Build? Shout out to Brooks Builds. He has a YouTube channel and he's a member of the Coding Garden community. You should check him out at Brooks Builds. He's been doing a lot of Rust and U, which is like a framework for building web apps with Rust. So definitely go check him out. Welcome in, Brooks. Good to see you. User, good to see you. What's up, Mohammed and Hollow Man and Sequel Gordster, Jaicom, good to see you. What's up, Amin and Tomas and Kanin and Jonah Joe. Hello, everyone. And Slice Rabbit. It's been a while. Welcome in. I've been struggling with getting my passion back for programming. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are, but welcome in. Yeah, good to see you, George. So, I mean, let's jump right into the discussion. I think what we'll kind of just do is, I mean, even if you've already said it in the chat, go ahead and throw it, and we'll just put it on a list of like first programming languages. Also, how about this? I want you to put the year of your first programming language as well. If you're comfortable doing that, like what year did you learn that programming language? Because that also will affect things, right? Because if you learned programming 10 years ago, 20 years ago, there were different preferences for what your first one would be. So for me, this would have been. Here's the thing. I feel like if I don't even want to tell you the year because that will age me in either a good or a bad way. But I'll tell you. So my first programming language, I think, would have been ActionScript. And so this is like Adobe Flash, and before that, Macromedia Flash with ActionScript. This would have been like 2005. And then also a little bit of PHP. Like I did both of these around the same time, but this would have been like 2005 for me. So let's see. Slice Rabbit learned JavaScript in 2015 as their first programming language. Yeah. Yeah, welcome in, Underdog. Yeah, Basic, I think for a lot of people that learned like over 20, 30 years ago, Basic was a very popular choice back then. Does HTML count? Sure. Why not? We don't judge here. It's technically markup. It's not a programming language, but I would count it. Because honestly, I was learning CSS and HTML. That's the thing. I was probably doing CSS and HTML like a year or two before that, so probably like 2003 is when I was doing CSS and HTML. I'll put this for under me specifically, so you all know that. Yeah, Roga says my first line of code was in 2001. I used Delphi 4 to write Object Pascal. Delphi 4 was in 2001. Later, I used C to write the good old classic Snake game. Nice. Yeah. So Mohammed did C++ in 2022. Nice. Irosum did Perl in the early 2000s. Let's take a quick stretch. Now, SQL Gordster did Apple Basic in 1983. Are you going to get mad if I just group it in with Basic? Because I know, actually, I don't know. What are the differences between Basic and Apple Basic? Mark Boots also did PHP in 98. Let's see. Bricksbuild says, I can't remember, but it was back when a PC was specifically an IBM PC. So it had to be the 90s then, right, Brooks? And Primo Sama said, my first programming language was GW Basic in 1987. We're going to put all of the basic variants in under one. Limode's C++ in 2010. Very good. XX Etri says, Logo and Basic in the late 90s. Late 90s. Logo we haven't seen yet, but I did see people mention Logo in the Discord, which is a visual. I'm pretty sure this is the Turtle programming language, isn't it? When Sabaro did PHP in 2012. We've got Visual Basic. Basic on a Commodore 64. Yeah, we'll also just make a list of things that people mentioned. Visual Basic. What else? Swift. Haven't touched it since. So Swift in 2019, but haven't touched it since. Stack Overflow counts HTML as a programming language? Yeah. Flash and ActionScript? Yep. Python in 2020. Aman says, not sure if it counts, but I built an inventory app with Excel and VBA, or I feel like it's Visual Basic Script. I don't know what the VBA is. With hidden sheets as my database when I was 13. I also remember creating something in Dreamweaver around the same time. It counts, Aman. It absolutely counts. Yeah, it counts. It definitely counts. C back in 2010. Nice. Visual Basic in 2006, 2007. We'll put 2006. I'm not that. Well, I know I'm not that old. Well, that's the thing. I'm not worried about being old. It goes both ways. I feel like so as you can see, there are a lot of people in the chat that have been doing this for longer than I have. And they might have assumed I was older than I am. And then some people assume that I'm younger than I am. Basically, I don't reveal my age because it's bad both ways. People will feel bad because they thought I was older, and then people will also feel bad because they thought I was younger. So that's why I don't do it. C# in 2017. Java in 2000. It's fascinating that we're seeing new languages aren't repeated as much, at least at this part in the chat. Yeah, Scratch definitely counts. I mean, a lot of people learn with visual programming languages. I think these days we have the technology to do it. Back in the day, Logo would have been the closest to something like Scratch. But yeah, it absolutely counts. Yeah, Basic in the late 80s, Pascal in the early 90s. Do we have Pascal on here? I don't think we do. Yeah, Basic for me too, the one that came on the BIOS. Nice. PHP in 2004. We do have PHP on here in a wide range of years. Yeah. Basic in 1970. Oh, we're going way back, JCOM. JCOM has some really cool stories in the Discord that we're going to share as well. HTML back in 1999. Nice. We'll put HTML on here. Delphi was the IDE. Oh, Delphi was the IDE. What was the programming language then? Did you mention that? Oh, Object Pascal. I see. Is that different than Pascal? Yeah. First code I was paid to write was Bash shell scripting in 2006. Nice. Honestly, same. Yeah, because one of the first jobs I had was as a systems administrator. Yeah. C in 2013. C# since 2021. Yeah. Nice. Just started at university in Unreal Engine 5. So technically that would be C++, right? So Unreal Engine is C++. So, I mean, we can see just from the trends of people in the chat mentioning, like there are some trends of what are things people are picking up as their first language these days. Like definitely C++. Honestly, Java and C# and Python are all things people are picking up as their first language these days. Yeah, Java in 2014. The Visual Basic that was built into Word. Yeah, so I thought it was like VB Script, because it's the one you could do like automation in Word and Excel and stuff like that. And that's what's funny is no one has mentioned okay, it's one person mentioned JavaScript. Because for a lot of people, JavaScript is these days, JavaScript is their first language as well. Yeah, and shout out to our good friend Dr. Daniel Schiffman over on the Coding Train. Does this command work? Yes, it does. Yes. Coding Train is awesome, and he did some recent videos around. He got an old Apple computer running and wrote some programs with BASIC on it. Yeah. ActionScript in PHP in 2000. Nice. I think you're the only other person to mention ActionScript in the chat then. And then, yeah. JavaScript in 2023. Nice. Glad to hear it. Yeah. Yeah. What's up, James? Welcome in. VBA in the late 90s. Yeah. Used to draw squares and rectangles from what I can remember. Nice. Ched, what's up, Ched? Ched started PHP in 2003. We started around the same time then, Ched. What's up, Nortu? Welcome in. Nortu Emmanuel. Pascal in 2013. Fascinating. Lua, that wasn't on the list yet. In 2019. Does anyone even know this programming language? We'll talk about it. I think that's the other thing is like, yeah, just getting it out there, what were people's first programming languages, but I think we'll also talk about the different types of programming languages and why they might be your first, also depending on the era that you learned in. SQL in 2009. Nice. That's not on our list. Visual Basic for applications. Oh, VBA is Visual Basic for applications. I see. Is it okay to group it with just Visual Basic? Because there's also VB.NET, which is Visual Basic for .NET. Gautier did Java in 2022. Very good. Let's see what else. CSE. Yeah, I was born at the Linux epoch, essentially. Python in 2023. Yeah. C in 2012. Do we have C on this list? We do. Honestly, I don't even know what we're going to do with this list. This list is getting unwieldy at this point. C++ and Unreal Engine in 2023. I think, do we have? Yeah, we have 2023 on there as well. Turbo Pascal in 1992. So we have Pascal and Turbo Pascal, but we also have Object Pascal. How different are these? Do we just group them together? Is Turbo Pascal Object Pascal? Well, there is JavaScript on the list. Yeah, we have a few. There's a few people. Game Maker. What's the programming language you use with Game Maker? Yeah. MATLAB counts. Yeah, absolutely. That is a lot of engineers and researchers' first programming language. If it isn't Python, it's something like MATLAB, I would say. Yeah. 1972 is under basic, not under PHP. Did I put the wrong thing on there? PHP didn't exist in 1972, so yeah. Physics degree in 2012. Yeah, we're gonna count MATLAB. That absolutely counts. Because like I said, yeah, like science and engineering degrees, you'll learn that it's programming. Like you can do all the things in it. Object Pascal is an extension to the programming language Pascal that provides object-oriented programming features such as classes and methods. Nice. Python in 2017. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write this list out and then ask ChatGPT to organize it in some meaningful way. Let's see what else. Django. Yeah, but I guess that would have been Python. Started a coding bootcamp earlier this year, learning basic web dev, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and eventually React. Nice. So yeah, I think 2023 right here on the JavaScript list for sure. Yeah. I did ActionScript with Flash 3 and 4, 98 and 99 with HTML and PHP. Nice. Do we have 1998 on the PHP list? Turbo Pascal in the late 90s. Did we have that yet? PHP in 1997? Yeah. Lua, I only learned to control computers in the Minecraft mod Computercraft. The thing is, a lot of people's first exposure to programming is game mods as well. That's a thing. Andrew did JavaScript in 2017. Very nice. Assembler, 1996. What kind of assembler? Yeah. This was a brilliant naming choice with absolutely no drawbacks. Yeah. C++ and COBOL in 1996. Nice. Welcome in, Acid Spark. Yeah, COBOL isn't on our list. Yeah, Unity script in 2015. That's interesting. Yeah, so I think we heard of Unreal Engine, so people doing C++, but Unity script was a thing where you could use JavaScript to write games. Yeah. HTML in 2021. Nice. Build an app with each of them, yeah. Pedro Pascal? No, Turbo Pascal? Object Pascal? Cool. No, people have mentioned Python. We've got several for Python. Yeah. Unity script would be an API for C#. Yeah, so the whole way Unity, I think they consolidated on C#, if I'm remembering that right. But there used to be multiple language you could use where they all targeted the same .NET runtime, I'm pretty sure, which is like what C# does. I should have made this list in JavaScript. Well, I can ask ChatGPT to do it. Yeah, Game Maker. I think we have Game Maker on there. Yeah. I don't count the basic I did in 1990. I only created a couple of stupid toys. I counted Acid Spark because I think like that was your first exposure to programming, even if it took you a few years later till you actually started picking it up or learning it seriously. Yeah. SQL in Microsoft Access in 1995. Nice. It's also fun to hear the wide range of experience in the chat, right? We have a large portion of the audience, and Limeluts, thank you for the resub. We have a large portion of the audience that has been doing this for 10, 15, 20 years, and a large portion of the audience that's been doing this for 5, 3, 2, even like 1 year. Turbo Pascal in 1999. Nice. Django and JavaScript in 2019. So we would put Python. So Django is Python. We don't have 2019 on the list. Turbo Pascal 1999. React and MongoDB 2021. Yeah, I would like basically I would this would be JavaScript. Do we have 2019 on the JavaScript list? Yeah. No, we're doing it, Rogo. We're getting through all the messages. I think we used ActionScript 2 and Flash, no coding needed. Yeah, so there was different ways to go about it, right? Like they had like so ActionScript was the language you could. And Andrew, thank you for the Prime resub. Um, why don't I hear notifications? That's weird to me. But let me make sure I didn't miss anything else. Yeah, that's all. That's all we got. Great. But yeah, so you could use ActionScript to create animations inside of Flash, but also they had a drag and drop interface and like a tweening interface where you didn't necessarily have to write code; it could still generate the code for you. Yeah, HTML isn't a programming language. It's fine. We're gonna allow it. Ladder logic in 2011. Ooh, ooh, ooh. We have Bash and PowerShell because I see that happening to many of us without noticing. Yeah, so Brooks mentioned it. Did we not put it on here? Well, Brooks mentioned that Bash was the first thing they got paid for, but it wasn't their first programming language. Yeah. I was late to the party and only started programming at 27. I started in PHP in 2019. Nice. Is 2000s Dreamweaver a thing? Well, that was an IDE, which I did use, but the programming languages were like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Yeah. Please explain how to build secure auth and authorization. Explain JSON Web Tokens, cookies, and how to save the token in a cookie. There are tons of resources on YouTube that should help you with that. I can't help you with that right now because we're talking about other things. Yeah. I do have auth videos, but not any recent ones. I went the opposite way. C# in 2014 and then C in 2017. Nice. No, wait, did I do that wrong? C 2014, C# 2017. Recorded a game from a vinyl to tape for Amstrad in like 1995. That's just amazing to hear. Like, yeah, there used to be like magazines that would like ship like cassette tapes with programs on them, and then to hear that they were on vinyl and then to like rip the program from vinyl to tape to your PC, that's crazy. Yeah. I found someone using Dreamweaver at my current job in 2021. Very scary. Well, do they still maintain it? Is there like a recent version of Dreamweaver? Yeah. Yeah. If we're counting HTML and CSS, I didn't start in 2019 with Go and JavaScript. It would be 2012 for me, and we're counting ActionScript as 2008. We'll count it. We'll count it. Now, I'm gonna grab anything from the Discord that I didn't get yet, and then we'll move on to the next portion of this. But this is just fun to hear, right? Like all the people that watch Coding Garden and that are here right now. It's fun to hear what all of the languages they started with, because I would assume a lot of you, because you watch me, are into web dev. I mean, some of you aren't into web dev. Some of you do lower level programming, and you kind of watch me to stay up to date on web programming, even though you don't do it yourself. But it is interesting to hear where everyone started and where they came from. No, so YouTube, we're using your handle. If you look up how to change your handle on YouTube, that's what we're pulling in. Yeah. Well, that just means that that's what your YouTube handle is. In the chat, it shows you the name that you have set, but over here, I'm showing your YouTube handle. Yeah. Yeah, 80s, the robotic turtle thing is logo. And JICOM said, back in 1972, at age 11, in math, there was a terminal with an acoustic modem and learned BASIC there. So yeah, do we have JICOM with BASIC in the 70s? Yeah, we do. Yeah, we're gonna get into the images that JICOM shared as well. That's gonna be fun. Yeah, we've got C++. Cool. All right, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take this list and I'm gonna ask ChatGPT to summarize it and organize it in some way. Let's do it. See if we can gain some insights from this mostly unstructured list of data. I guess we'll use GPT-4 because it can handle longer text. So yeah, I got GPT-4. Let's come up with a prompt. Given this list of programming languages and the years that people... Okay, given this list, which is programming, which is people's first programming language, and the years they first learned them, provide some organization and insights about the data. Go. Okay. So if we're talking 70s to 80s, then languages like BASIC, Pascal, Assembler, COBOL, those were the main things people were learning first. If we're talking about the 90s, then you've got things like ActionScript, BASIC, Turbo Pascal, Object Pascal, PHP. ChatGPT is wrong, are they? Because yeah, Pascal is listed as early 90s. I don't think it understood my data. I need to describe it better. We're going to try again. Actually, yeah, we can. I think we can come up with a better prompt. Let's come up with a better prompt. Because I could say something like, given this list, like we're gonna have to, we'll go one step at a time. One step at a time. Our jobs are safe. Given this list of programming languages and the year they were first learned, group them by common year/decade. I feel like that's a better thing to ask. Nice. This is better. So in the 70s, we have BASIC, 1972. We have also BASIC, which was... Okay, this is better. Oh, thanks, Chad. He said, nice backyard. Yeah, thanks. Did it get it wrong again? Late 90s. Might overlap with 90s. Turbo Pascal. Okay. It's mostly right. I feel like we still would need to go through and yeah. Okay, so it did grouped by decades, and then now it's doing grouped by year. It's funny that it swapped early 90s and late 90s. It's getting there. It's also taking a while, but it's getting there. I think here's the thing. It's wrong on a couple of things, but general trends are the same trends that I would have extracted. So once it's done, we'll talk about that. Yeah. Okay. So if your first programming language, if you learned to program in the 70s, you probably were learning BASIC. I think that's what we're learning here. If you learned to program in the 80s, it was either like BASIC or Turbo Pascal. There's other things too, but of the people that are in the chat, that's it. If you learned to program in the 90s, there was ActionScript, BASIC, C++, PHP, Logo, Turbo Pascal, Pascal, HTML, SQL, Assembler, and COBOL. These languages existed before this. Some of these existed before the 90s, but the people that it was their first programming language, it was in the 90s. And then in the 2000s, we had ActionScript, Perl, PHP, Object Pascal, and GameMaker. In the 2010s, we had ActionScript, JavaScript, Basic, C++, C, PHP, Python, C#, Java, Visual Basic, or Visual Basic for Applications, or VB.NET, Pascal, SQL, MATLAB, Lua, and Swift. In the 2020s, this is the era that we're in now, if you forgot. We've got JavaScript, C++, Python, C#, and Java. And if I had to give you a list of the most common languages to start with today, it would pretty much be this list. There might be one or two things that we add to it, but this is I think a good representation of what people are learning as their first language these days. Yeah, and then you can also see the specific years when people learn those things. So that's fun. It's fun to have that information. Thank you all for participating. I guess if I could, ask it to generate a visualization with data. Generate a visualization, a good visualization with this data. Does it generate charts? I did not know that. I can't create visual elements directly, but you can easily create a visualization of the data using software like Excel, Google Sheets, or data visualization libraries in Python. Here's how you can set it up. It's stop. Create an ASCII art bar chart of the data. That's not bad. Okay, so if we're looking at grouped by decades, this also gives us a distribution of the of when people started programming in the chat, and so like it's obviously more this way, right? There's a good percentage of the chat that learned to program in the 90s, but most people, I would say, learned to program in 2010s or later. Create an ASCII bar chart of language and count. Yeah, we got some old dudes, but that's okay. That's awesome. I mean, that's what makes the coding garden interesting. Oh yeah, nobody mentioned Rust as their first programming language, but it is possible these days that Rust might be your first. It's hard to say though. Like I think the reason a lot of people have C or C++ as their first programming language, or even Java, is because of university. So if you got a computer science degree, you typically would learn C++ or C or Java, sometimes C#, depending on where you're at, as your first programming language. And so I don't know if any university has like updated their curriculum to use something like Rust or Go as a first programming language. So yeah. So it is interesting to note. So like if we want to look at the largest number, the highest here is PHP and BASIC as the first programming language, and then there's like a tie for JavaScript, C++, C, Python as like the second most popular first programming language. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's the other thing is these days they might even start with Python or a higher level language. So yeah, so let's actually try to start to actually we can ask ChatGPT. Categorize the languages into high level, low level. Yeah, high level and low level. Because that's another aspect of your first programming language. Is it higher level or is it lower level? Now, lower level is going to be things like C++, C. Basically, everything on our list is a higher level language. Perl is not a low level language. Perl is a scripting language. They got that wrong. Right? I thought I did add PHP in 2019. I thought I did. Oh, I guess I didn't. All right. But yeah, let's talk about low level versus high level. So if you're a new programmer and you're trying to figure out what should your first programming language be, these are things you would take into consideration. So if we talk about types of programming languages, so a a low-level programming language, we typically refer to this as close to the metal. And by metal, we mean literal hardware. Like closer to the CPU, the actual physical computer that you're programming on. When you use a lower level language, the code that you write is closer to that hardware that you're running it on. We'll say needs to be compiled, and that you like for a specific CPU target. In that, so like if you write C++ code and you want to run it on a specific kind of computer, it needs to be compiled for the specific CPU target or the specific kind of computer that it's going to be running on. It sometimes is portable, meaning that you could compile it to different targets, but you will need different compilation targets depending on the like if I guess from a higher level, if you're talking about like a Windows machine, a Mac, or like a Linux machine, Macs these days have Apple silicon, which is a specific type of, I think it's an ARM-based CPU. But if you wrote a C++ program and you wanted to run it on a Mac, you would need to compile it for Apple silicon as your target. And if you wanted it to run on a Windows machine that had like an Intel CPU, you would need to compile it with Intel as your target. So those are the things that you have to think about when writing a lower level language. Let me know in the chat, what are other things about lower level languages? We'll say typically have to do manual memory management. And this is the other aspect of being close to the metal. So because you're closer to the CPU, you're also closer to the memory on a computer. And because of that, you typically have to actually manage your memory in terms of just like allocating a certain amount of memory for data that you're going to be working with, and then also releasing or freeing up that memory when you're done with it. And yeah, like Limotes is saying in Slice Rabbit is like some of the fastest possible resulting code. Because it's running so close to the metal, there's no abstractions or layers or runtimes between the compiled code and the machine. It's often pretty fast. You can write slow code, but the reason people choose it is because you can try to squeeze out every possible bit of performance and like do like manual optimization of the code. Yeah, so more control of the resulting code, and in turn, more work. You also feel wicked smart, yeah. So XH is saying, mentioning the use of pointers. So typically, pointers have to do with memory management. So like, you have a pointer to some place in memory, and you get to control that manually. Yeah. You need some kind of simulation or emulation for debugging. Yeah, depending, like if you're doing, what's the term? Like embedded development. So like you're specifically programming for a certain kind of chip, or something like that. A lot of times, in order to speed up the development cycle, you have some kind of like hardware emulator or something like that. Yeah. Let's talk about though, let's say like industries where this is used. Obviously in like hardware, like PC, like the PC hardware manufacturers. So I'm thinking of like device drivers, operating systems. That's the other thing is, so like, yeah, so if you're building games, you want them to be as fast as possible, and they're using really efficient code to run on GPUs to get like tons of frames per second and stuff like that. the gaming industry. Yeah, gaming. So yeah, if we talk about like health, uh, healthcare, what would I say here? So things like a pacemaker. So like if you have some hardware device that makes sure your heart keeps beating, or that is in control of various other types of devices and like I'll say like health critical devices. Yeah, so let's say medical. They will use like lower level languages like this. Yeah, so like a real time operating system is typically used by. I mean, so you also have like manufacturing. So things like assembly lines, and like robots, like robots being programmed to like assemble cars and different stuff like that. A lot of times those have a what's known as like a real time operating system. Um, yeah, also like robotics. Um, yeah, I guess imaging um, for like X-rays, CAT scans, MRIs. Those are probably written in a lower level language. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, this is low level. There are more. There are many more places where lower level languages would be used. I'm not thinking of them right now. I haven't heard from them in the chat, but these are the kind of MREs, meals ready to eat. No, MRIs. I don't even know what MR stands for, but these are the kinds of things that lower level languages are used for. And let's list out the lower level languages. So you have things like C++, C. I'll call it. Let's have a list of like tried and true. Like these have been around for a very long time, and aren't really going anywhere. C++, C. Are things like Fortran and COBOL, are those lower level languages? What's up, Greg? But yeah, so new kids on the block. We've got things like Rust, Go, Zig. Is anybody actually writing assembly directly? I guess maybe you are, depending on the type of device that you're writing it on. Magnetic resonance imaging. That's what it is. Yeah. I have not seen that editor. No. Financial modeling and programming and stock trading. Yeah. What's interesting though is, yes, you might use lower level languages, but they also use higher level languages too. Like I've heard of and seen job postings for like financial modeling that's using like C# and .NET and stuff like that. So there will be some overlap for sure. Go is low level. Yeah, Go compiles to a CPU target. It is. I mean, I guess that's what I mean. It's like the reason I would categorize something like C# or Java as higher level is because they're not typically running directly on the machine. There's some kind of intermediary runtime that is your compile target, and that's that. And then similarly for like scripting type languages, typically there's some kind of scripting runtime that's interpreting those languages and then allowing them to run on a CPU. But as far as I know, Go is compiled specifically for a CPU target. Newer? Let's just say newer languages. Languages. Chris Sawyer wrote Roller Coaster Tycoon in assembly. Wow. Oh yeah, Carbon was the other new one. You learned x86 assembly after GW Basic. Nice. Originally C was considered. Yeah, I think it's all relative, right? Because before C, you basically only could write assembly. And so C was higher level, but in terms of the many types of programming that happen these days, I would group all of these into lower level. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the other thing is like compiled versus interpreted versus like running directly on the machine and having some kind of intermediary. Yeah. Yeah, looking forward to more mainstream support for AOT and C# for native binaries. That's the other thing is like some of these higher level languages can have native compiled targets. Like that's possible. Um, yeah. Before C, there was B. All right. I'm going to add the caveat that I'm probably missing some things, and you could argue about the placement of some of these languages, but that's the other thing. All right, let's get into like higher level programming languages, and these let's give a basic definition here is typically not the target is typically not the hardware directly. There is some kind of intermediary target. How do you spell intermediary? Intermediary target. Sometimes known as like bytecode or whatever else. Sometimes some kind of intermediary target. Sometimes interpreted by a runtime. Yeah. JavaScript is a high-level language. It's also a scripting language. Yeah, scripting, JIT or just-in-time, or something like a runtime targeted. Yeah. If a spacesuit could be considered a medical device, then there's definitely JavaScript in medical devices. What is AOT? I don't know. Honestly, I actually don't even feel good about this grouping because we're about to get into basically the rest of programming. Like not just web dev, like everything else. It's like a lot of things are higher level languages these days. Ahead of time compilation, yeah. I think there can be a combination of AOT and just in time. C and Java are on the same level. I disagree though. I disagree because Java's target. So let's look at an example, and we'll look at Java as an example. Java is compiled into bytecode. The target for this bytecode is the JVM, or the Java Virtual Machine. The compilation result can run anywhere the JVM is supported. But the JVM needs to be installed / running for the Java program to run. So you write some Java code, you compile it. It technically has a compile target, but you can't just go run that on any machine. Any machine you want to run it on has to have the Java runtime installed. And then when you're running your code, your Java code that you've compiled, it's running on top of the Java virtual machine. It's running on top of the Java runtime. So that's why we're calling this a higher level language, and yeah, you could have these groupings slightly different, right? Because and we talked about this a little bit ago. Like you could say that okay, like assembly is the lowest of the levels, but the resulting thing or one of the resulting aspects of grouping Java as higher level is a lot of times there is garbage collection, which is automated memory management, where you don't typically have direct access over allocating memory and deallocating memory. The runtime handles all of that for you, like as the code is running. So your binary has to basically ship with the runtime. It doesn't ship with it, but you won't be able to run it unless you have the runtime installed. So yeah. Yeah. As a native iOS developer, and I want to get into backend, what tech should I pick? I'm pretty sure you can build APIs with Swift. You should look into that. Because then you don't have to pick anything else. You can just keep using Swift. Yeah. I don't have a good answer for you because I would suggest like JavaScript and TypeScript, but it's a mess of an ecosystem. .NET and C# could be interesting. You can build like ASP.NET JSON APIs. But yeah. Does Go have garbage collection? I don't know what it's called. I just know that there is a thing. Well, a guide to the Go garbage collector. In most cases, a Go developer need not care about where these values are. I don't know then. So if they have a garbage collector, but it's still technically like, the thing is there are mechanisms in these other lower level languages that allow for automated memory management, like reference counting, and things like that. But it's different than basically having almost like a program running alongside your program that does the collecting for you, which is not the case with Go, as far as I know. Yeah. Java is the only programming language I know that has ads on TV. I haven't seen those, but yeah, it would. I mean, I'm not putting it past them for other programming languages to start putting ads on TV, because there has been a very much like marketing and productification, especially in the JavaScript world of programming languages and stuff. Yeah. What would be the use case to use Java these days? It's used a lot in enterprise, big companies. Yeah. Are we conflating low level with system languages? I think so. Maybe that's a better categorization. Sure, let's do that. And then what is this category? It's not higher level anymore. Yeah. Any tips on overcoming imposter syndrome? I feel like I've talked about this before. I probably have. I'm not going to talk about it right now because it's going to get us way off track. Yeah. This live stream, it's a long one. Oh, I have timestamps though. There we go. Look at this. Where is the imposter syndrome? It's not in the timestamps. Oh well. This is go watch this video. I don't know if I don't know if application languages is a good descriptor. Yeah. Higher level application focused, I guess. I don't know. You could say something like extreme performance is I need to catch up on this just to make sure I don't get here. But has less importance than development speed slash developer experience slash developer ergonomics. Because these days, there is absolutely a focus on making things easier to write and maintain. And these higher level languages typically are easier to write and maintain than the lower level ones. There's more libraries you could use. There's more things built in at the cost of not being as performant or not having as much control. Extreme performance and fine grain control is less important than development speed, developer experience, and developer ergonomics. Yeah. And so, yeah, and that's exactly what it's the ergonomics of building things with that programming language. And I mean, I guess I'm a little bit biased, but it does seem like most there's a larger percentage of programmers these days that are in these more application focused and higher level languages than in lower level. Now, there absolutely still are jobs around lower level, but the higher level stuff seems like there's more of it. Yeah, there was a shift in the 80s when the machine costs less than the programmer's time. Yeah, and I think that's a good way to think about it, is like we used to be very resource constrained in the programs that we wrote. Like the hardware we were running on only had a limited amount of memory. I mean, it still does, but you can look at a computer back in the 80s that only had like 1 kilobyte of RAM, if that. And these days computers have gigabytes of RAM, which is like so many orders of magnitude more. And so like the machine can run faster without needing to have like to optimize those things yourself. So yeah. Yeah. And then so to get back into another example, we'll say like C# is compiled into bytecode. I think the other aspect of higher level and application focused codes is typically have multiple target outputs, meaning the same code base can run on many different kinds of devices and operating systems. So without extra effort. Yeah. Well, there is I think the category for those is esoteric languages, which don't necessarily have. I mean, I don't know about Chef or these others, but like this one that you're mentioning, there isn't exactly like a professional place where you can go write that language. It's typically for fun. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so yeah, C# is compiled into bytecode, and the target for this bytecode is the .NET runtime. And similar, like basically, we're just replacing phrases in the Java description. So the compilation result can run anywhere the .NET runtime is supported, but the .NET runtime needs to be installed and running for the C# program to run. The interesting thing to note, especially about both of these ecosystems, actually have multiple different programming languages that have the same target. So there's C#, there is Visual Basic, there's F#. All of those compile to the same target here. Java also has. Help me out in the chat. What are some of the other JVM languages? What's the the functional one, Scala. Scala is the compiled target is the same as Java, but it is a functional programming language. Oh yeah, well yeah, I guess Kotlin compiles for the JVM as well. Yep. So Kotlin is the one that you can use typically for like Android development. Yeah. Yeah. Groovy is another one. And what's interesting about this is like, so you pick your type of programmer. So like, let's say you're a native Android programmer, you can use that. If you prefer functional programming, you can use that. I think Groovy is like used a lot in like APIs and stuff like that. So whatever type of programmer you choose, the language where you like to write in, but ultimately the end result is the Java virtual machine or something that can run on the Java virtual machine. So Java, Kotlin, Scala, Groovy, Clojure. Oh yeah, Jython is funny. It's Python that can run on the JVM. Oh well. Uh, let's ask ChatGPT. What are some languages that run on the .NET runtime? C#, VB.NET, F#, Iron Python. Again, that's Python that can run in the .NET runtime. Yeah. Yeah, and I guess there's managed C++. Um, which is basically like it is lower level, but you do have access to like a lot of the .NET things. Okay, why am I talking about all of this? Um, yeah. We haven't talked about like functional versus object oriented. I think I'm getting down the wrong rabbit hole here. What are we even trying to get at? Like, what were the questions we're trying to answer? So we talked about what was your first programming language. Honestly, yeah, I think all of this is for context for anybody that's newer to programming. I think this is useful context. And basically, if it wasn't listed here in terms of like lower level mission critical things, it's probably using some higher level language. So we won't even start to list it out because it's literally everything else. The thing is, you might even say though that like Swift and Objective C are lower level, and you still technically are using those for application programming because you can build native apps with them. Yeah. I don't know. Let's get away from this conversation and talk about some other things. Honestly, we kind of want to answer to like let's answer this question. If you were to learn programming today, would you learn the same first language again? We're gonna answer this question right now. And for me, the answer is no because it's not relevant anymore. So no, ActionScript is not relevant anymore. So I think really the thing is like if you learned programming more than 10 years ago, there is probably a better programming language to start. Yeah, except for PHP. PHP of all the things in this list, PHP is like one of them where it's still like very relevant and can still be people's first programming language, and you can still have like a very successful career doing it as well. So if you learned programming more than 10 years ago, there's probably a better programming language to start. Except for PHP. You could start there today and still be successful. Yeah. So yeah, so let me hear your opinions in the chat of the first programming language that you learned. Mention what it was in the chat, and then mention why do you think you would still learn that today. And you can bring things up like, well, it got me employed, or it was fun to use and is still fun to use. Those kinds of things. So let me know. Sunny says, I would go with object-oriented languages like C#. I think it's easy to learn, transfers into .NET, Razor, and APIs beautifully. Yeah, so some people are mentioning starting with OOP, which is object-oriented programming. And we haven't talked about the different kinds of programming languages, because there's object-oriented programming, there's functional programming, or FP. But object-oriented programming, you basically group your program into objects that model the real world. These objects talk to each other to make a working program. So, for example, let's say we're going to model a laundromat, like a place you go to do your laundry. You'll have objects for all of the things. Like you'll have an object representing even the business side of it will have an object representing the customer, and an object representing a payment, and an object representing the whole like life cycle of checking out. So like your receipt and inventory, and things like that. And then also you might represent the actual process of washing people's clothes with objects. So you could have like a dryer object that accepts clothes, or accepts a list of clothes, and each clothes item is an object that describes the type of garment that it is. And then you might also have things like detergents and soaps that are like, so maybe you have like a soap object that gets put into the, I don't know if this is like breaking down or not, but basically any type of real world system, when you're making a program for it, you model it all with objects, and those objects can have internal state. So like a dryer can have information internally about, well, is it on? How long has it been on? What is the temperature set to? And then there are ways for the outside world to get that information, to know like, well, how long have you been on? When will you be done? Those kinds of things. And so I feel like for the way that humans think, it's a more intuitive way to think about how to solve problems in an object type way. But some people might disagree, and some people would argue that, well, eventually this type of model starts to break down, and you basically are forcing your programs into this type of model when they don't actually fit. But what Sunny is saying, I would go with object-oriented languages. We can make a list of them. So C# is object-oriented, Java is object-oriented, C++ is object-oriented, JavaScript is object-oriented, has object-oriented aspects. Python has object-oriented aspects. It's actually interesting that some of these languages cross the boundary, though. So like JavaScript is not only an object-oriented programming language, it's also functional. Python, similar. So yeah, that's a thing. And Munch says, no, I'm happy with PHP. It gave me a good understanding of everything else. Nice. Yeah, I think that's the other thing to consider is, and I'll throw this out there. Honestly, if I'm being honest, there are no really bad choices for your first programming language. The concepts overlap and hold true for many different programming languages. So learning the concepts like variables and assignment, loops of many different kinds, conditionals, just like program structure in general. So like, where do you put things? Also in terms of like functions and organizing things into functions and stuff like that. Because you technically still have functions. Really, they're called methods, even in object-oriented programming. So it's not it's not functional programming, but we can still use functions and methods inside of object-oriented programming. But one thing to note is, like, regardless of what you choose, you're learning these underlying concepts. And as long as you learn those things, you can learn any other language after that, and all of these things will still apply. Now, you'll have to learn the specifics of that language or runtime, but a lot of things will transfer over. And at a certain point, it might just be learning syntax. And once you know the syntax, then you can use what you already know about stuff. Eddie says, I enjoyed my time with Lua, and it got me a job as a developer. So yeah, I mean, Lua would probably be an okay choice these days as well. JavaScript or Python seem like the most engaging choices for a first-timer right now, so no. Yeah, I will put those... Let's make a list of things I suggest. CJ's suggestions for your first programming language. I would put JavaScript at the top of the list. Now, I am extremely biased because I do a lot of web development, but here's my argument. One of the things you typically want to do with whatever you decide to program or build is you want to be able to share that with the world. Whether it's like an app that you want people to use or a game you want people to play. Most of the time when you're building a program or like learning to code, you typically want to share it with people. And JavaScript and web development make that really easy to do. Everyone has a web browser on their phone or on their computer. And you'll obviously have to learn the aspects of like front end versus back end and different things like that. But it's much easier to get your creations in the hands of other people. Because if you choose something like Python, which I think is also a good first choice, if you want to get your Python creations in the hands of non-technical people, you kind of have to learn a little bit of web development to even be able to do that. You can't just learn Python. But you can do a lot of things with Python. It also depends on like what you're trying to do with your first programming language. Like if you're trying to get a job, then like data science, AI, all those kinds of things are like really big in Python. But you can also do aspects of back-end web development like with Python. I think Java or C# are also good choices, especially like if you're in university and you're going to be finding a job soon and you want to find a job at like a really large corporation, like a Fortune 500 or Fortune 50 company. These languages are typically used there a lot. So C# is usually used anywhere where they have like heavy Microsoft influence or Microsoft stuffs. And Java has just been around for so long as well that it's also used like in enterprise. Yeah. What else should be on this list of? I mean, yeah, really, these are the things that I would say. I would see like maybe C++, depending on context. Like you probably could learn as a complete beginner. You could probably learn C++ to build games with the Unreal Engine. Because they also have like higher level stuff and like drag and drop, and it's not all low level programming, but it is going to be harder. But yeah, I think the other thing is, so like in university, I did learn, actually, I think I learned Java as my first programming language before eventually I went into systems programming classes where I learned about C and C++. But typically the way like a computer science education goes is you learn about the lower level stuff first because you're learning about memory management and the hardware that your programs are running on. And then eventually you learn higher level languages and you can more so appreciate what those higher level languages are doing behind the scenes. So yeah. C++ have a very steep learning curve. It does. I think that's the other thing is like, if you give up easily and you want a nice on-ramp, Python or JavaScript are actually really good. Like, regardless of like, people dog on JavaScript all the time. I bet when I scroll up in the chat, there are going to be people that say, no, don't learn JavaScript. It's like, it's too weird. It's only weird. JavaScript is only weird if you actually know anything about programming. Like, if you've worked with other programming languages, because it's not the same as other programs. It does things differently for historical reasons, and like that's why it's weird. But it's weird to you because you're used to other things. if you're brand new, you don't know how weird it is because you don't have anything to compare it against, and it actually is very forgiving for beginners. Yeah. I like to use C# because OOP is just all over the place. Also, C# has so many different projects you can tackle with it. I also really enjoy reading C#. Yeah, I think it's a good choice. I think especially like these days, Microsoft is has a good public reputation. Like there was a while where people didn't like C# Microsoft stuff because of it being like a large corporation that didn't necessarily have the interests of the developers in the community at the top of mind. But these days, Microsoft is doing a whole lot of open source type things and a whole lot of things to like grow the community. And these days, and it also used to be that C# and .NET were mainly just Windows programming, ways of programming on Windows. Now there were ways to take your C# program and run it on something that wasn't Windows, like with the Mono project and stuff like that, but it wasn't like officially supported. It was like a side thing. These days, the .NET Core is open sourced and has multiple targets and can run on Linux and Mac and Windows. And so that's why these days I think C# would even be a better choice than Java, because, I mean, I guess Java technically also can run in a lot of different places too. I don't know. I would have said C# because of being able to build games, because Unity, you would build your games with C#, but that's quickly going out the window. Like, I haven't kept up on all the drama or news about what Unity has done, but a lot of people aren't picking up Unity because it's going to cost a lot of money to use versus it used to be very cheap or free for indie development and indie games, but it's not anymore. At least last I heard. While JavaScript got me employed and has got me pretty far in my career, I think I'd learn C or Rust to start while focusing more on fundamentals and data structures. Yeah, and really, I think it goes both ways, right? Like, if you didn't start with a computer science background where you did these kinds of things, you maybe want to have a potential different start, similar to a computer science or C# background. Yeah, I believe starting with the OP is bad and can be frustrating. I think it depends. I think in general, modeling things as objects fits into our mental model of the world much easier. Like there's a lot of what's the word? I realize I'm also like 10 minutes behind on chat, so it's going to take a little bit to catch up. There's a lot of parallels and I can't think of the word, but it typically goes really well with how we think of things and how they interact, which is why a lot of people choose this. So yeah. Kimsa Boer says, I would learn Java again since I got a job by having fundamental knowledge of it. Nice. I don't think OOP is for me, but apparently teachers love to make car factories. What's the word for... Maybe somebody's saying it in the chat. What is the word for something where you say it's like something, but it's not like something? Why can't I think of this word? Teachers use it a lot to demonstrate things. I don't really use it that much. An analogy. That's exactly what I was looking for. I don't know why I couldn't think of the word analogy. Yeah, analogy or analogous. Yes, because teachers really like to use analogies. Like most teachers use analogies to try and convey concepts to people. And it's really easy to do with object-oriented programming because it's how we think about the world. Like there's just analogies everywhere. And so that's probably why teachers start with that and why people start with that. But yeah. It's better to start with procedural languages and learn data structures and algorithms. Yeah. I think the other aspect, though, of object-oriented programming is you're also learning a way of organizing your code early on, right? Because if you learn procedural programming first and you don't learn how to group-like functionality and that kind of thing, it's going to take you more time to learn how to like structure a good code base. So it can go either way. Yeah. Yeah. Java, you would learn it again. Yep. Yeah, that's the other thing we didn't talk about is like statically typed versus dynamically typed. Java is statically typed. JavaScript is dynamically typed. Yeah. We're talking about learning to program, so going directly into OP is like learning to swim in the ocean. I don't know if it is, though. I think there are a lot of people that learn it first. Like you're basically combining procedural programming with object-oriented programming, because like a lot of people, their whole program will just be in main when they're learning C# or learning Java, and that's where they start. But then they learn how to break out that functionality into objects. But they do start technically with like procedural programming. Yeah. Yeah. All languages are Turing complete, so that so they can do all what all the others do. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the other aspect of just like it's not a bad choice. Like you can do most anything with most any language. It really just comes down to your priorities. Like, are you trying to find a job? Are you trying to move quickly? There's different things you can think about. Yeah. What I think is the most used coding languages these days, web dev is huge. Web dev is everywhere. So like JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, those are the most used. And then in terms of like AI and machine learning and data science, Python is used heavily. And then in terms of larger enterprise, so think like big banks, big oil companies, big medical companies, just big companies, a lot of them will use like Java or C#, just because of also like the enterprise support for these things. Like that's another aspect there. And thank you, Vishak. I like my shirt. All right, what time is it? All right, we gotta keep moving because I have to go soon. I have not looked at HTMX. My argument is that you can use the same JavaScript on both front end and back end. Yeah, that's the aspect here. Is like you learn JavaScript and then learn to apply it in different places, and then you can have basically learn full stack. Yeah. TypeScript is a linter for JavaScript. So if I say learn JavaScript and you want to have clean code and a nice organized code base, then you would use TypeScript along with it. But I'm not categorizing it as a separate language. Yeah, TypeScript is the grown-up JavaScript that lets you organize large code bases, which initially JavaScript was never meant to do, which is why we need things like TypeScript. Yeah. JavaScript was pushed as marketing the same way Windows and Excel were on all the computers in space. Oh, Java was. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Here for a programming assignment. They want to see my Docker container hosted with a public URL. Can you suggest how to proceed? Fly.io, I think, is going to be the easiest way to do that. It's funny people hate on OP, but I rarely remember seeing anyone writing actual functional programming. And no, using functions doesn't mean functional programming. Yeah, that's basically what I was saying, is like, you still got to group your stuff into methods. I think anyone hating on OOP is potentially discounting a lot of what they did that was useful, and a lot of how they learned how to write I think that's the other aspect, is like, if you have guardrails and a framework for doing a thing, and you learn within that framework, it's much easier to then afterwards think outside of it and then reach for it when it's useful, or when you know that you can reach for it, but also know that you don't always have to reach for it, right? So I think basically I'm describing pragmatism. Just be pragmatic. Not everything has to be object-oriented programming. I started with PHP in 2000, used that for 15 years. I just learned that it's better than JavaScript and TypeScript nowadays. But honestly, I won't go back, even if it gets me a Lamborghini. Yeah. Alka says, I'm using Unity on a private project that won't be a game, just for visuals. We're still pretty early and could jump ship to Unreal, but I'm not sure yet. I've picked up 3D modeling again, and we've been working away to get stuff. And I don't know enough about like what Unity has done. And I know they also recently walked back some of their statements and some of the things that they had announced. But yeah, I don't know what that means for like a private project or anything else. Yeah. If you haven't used GoTo, are you really a programmer? I feel called out. Enjoying the renaissance of PHP in the workplace. The company I now work for used a lot of JavaScript and TypeScript in the last 5 years, but everything seems to be going back to PHP. I think that's the thing, is like, because PHP has been around longer, like as a backend language, there are some really good frameworks, and it's possible to write really nicely crafted and organized PHP these days. Whereas it's kind of harder to write nicely crafted and organized JavaScript backends. So that's a thing. And I said harder. I didn't say it's impossible. There are newer things that are making it easier to write backend JavaScript, but all of it is years behind like what you have in the world of PHP. Yeah. Cool. I caught up on chat. All right. We need to get to the CSS battle, so let's think of anything else that we need to talk about. Yeah. I think I'll just end with some, well, actually, we'll look at the Discord because there was some fun stuff shared in there, and then I'll end with some general advice, which is basically just, it's this. Like, after you learn to program, you can learn, it's after you learn your first programming language, it's much easier to learn your second, your third, your fourth. So, don't fret. don't overthink it. Like, if you're watching this video right now and you're deciding if you're going to learn to program or not, don't overthink it. Pick one, get some stuff done, and then after you learn the basics and the concepts, you can always learn something else. It's not the end of the world. You don't have to just learn that one thing and you're stuck with it. But let's look at some of the comments from the Discord on this. So Brooke Zerker says, if I dig really deep, the first language that I touched was BASIC. The BASIC that came in the BIOS of IBM PCs. I copied the code in from a book of games. It didn't explain what was happening, just lots of code. And then you get to play or hunt for that one line where we missed something. First language I got paid to write was in Bash. Super fun to realize that I could automate some of my job away and get to the more exciting parts. Yeah. Raccoon says, my first programming language was C# because that was the first language I saw for some reason with little to no research. I was 14 and programming mostly on my phone the first couple of years. Didn't get anything, forgot about programming for half a year after that, and then saw web dev and started learning JS. That was definitely more fun and understandable. So conclusion, don't start with C#. Yeah, it depends on where you're approaching it from, but I will say, if we talk about the learning curve for these things, the learning curve for C# and Java is definitely much steeper than it is for JavaScript and Python. Yeah. Yeah. Alex says, 3 years trying to get a web dev job, still trying to level up. Yeah, just keep at it. Keep at it. Stefan says, now this is an interesting one. I cannot be 100% certain what the first language I ever started doing programming in was called, but it was when I was 3 years old at a nursery. It was Logo. Yeah, we didn't show this, but let's look at this. Pretty sure this is it. Yeah. So basically, your language would control where the turtle went. And this language was designed back in 1967 to make it more approachable for young people to learn programming. These days, you have things like Scratch, P5. Wikipedia is not for sale. They're just asking for donations. All right, where were we? Here. Yeah, so it's Logo. After that, inevitably, I got into HTML in secondary school. Eventually, I got into more programming than markup language. Yeah, this is fascinating here, Stefan, because Stefan has actually been giving us updates. They're in a coding boot camp, but I think they have experiences of learning to program in their life, but they wanted to up their skills to be more modern. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Stefan. Actually, I don't in the comments if you're not watching live, but I'm pretty sure they're actually in a coding boot camp to learn modern programming practices, even though they already know how to learn to program or already know how to program, which is fascinating. All right, let's read this from JICOM because this is a fun one, and they have lots of fun little pictures and stuff. So back in school in 1972 in math class, there was a terminal with an acoustic modem, an old rotary phone hooked up to 2 suction cups, this thing here. 300 baud. So 300 baud is a rate at which data can be transferred, which is fascinating. Learned BASIC there. Then in college in 1978, it was an IBM 360 assembler, a program sent over the network from a mainframe, a PDP 1170 by DEC. Typing lines of code on a key punch, so holes punching into a carton card, You learn quickly to not make typos. Yeah, we're spoiled these days with like, type a thing, run it, doesn't work, type a thing, run it. Before, it took so much effort to even run a thing that you would put a lot of effort into making sure that you got it right. Yeah, so if you haven't seen the movie War Games, they use an acoustic coupler to like dial in to the mainframe. Yeah, the War Games is a classic hacking movie of sorts. Typing lines of code on a key punch, yeah, we got that part. My first web page was using Netscape Navigator in 1997, which was not free at the time. So yeah, you had to go to a store and buy your web browser. On an IBM PC 8086, I was using the combo as an inline database for a genealogy program with linked parent and child. It was before Web 2.0 and the 2000s .com bubble. The rest is history. My favorite language was APL. The language fourth, a reverse stack-based language. Fascinating. Now my favorite language is JavaScript. I use every day to build tools, even server-side tools using a Windows script file or HTA standalone HTML has an application since 2004. Yeah, so JICOM is mentioning that this trend of running JavaScript everywhere actually isn't a new trend. Like you've been able to write JavaScript on the server side even before node.js. It just wasn't as popular. And you could build desktop apps with it. It just wasn't as popular. So yeah, these are fun to see. And then these two machines, the IBM 360 and the PDP 1170, were the first machines I got paid for a paid job as a programmer. You can see it in action. Let's go see it. Wow. Cool. Okay. But yeah, if you're in the Discord, definitely you can go read more and click those links as well. Cool. Alka says, I often just write some of the letters throughput throughout whatever variable instead of perfectly typing it letter by letter. Like instead of calculate some cool thing, I might just roughly type. Yeah. I think that's the other aspect of modern dev is just like all the tools and autocomplete that we have. Those are the types of computers to get actual bugs in them. Yeah, for sure. Jonah Joe says, my first programming language was C. Back then, I was fascinated by the blue screen editor and used to memorize programs to pass my lab exams. If you had to start over, would you learn the same first language again? Definitely not. JavaScript has been my favorite programming language since when I got into the web dev world. I'm happy to get to know JavaScript better after working in projects myself. Working hands-on is really important for any programming language. All those assumptions and myths I had before actually working with JavaScript were just wiped out once I actually got into my front-end dev role. Nice. Namaste Geek says, first formal language was C++. I think also had a foundation course earlier that went over various languages like BASIC. Yeah. All right, Light Mode says, my first programming language was C++. All beginner programming classes at my college were taught with C++, so it wasn't really even an option. If I had to start over, I think I'd probably choose to learn C instead of C++. Same idea, but without a lot of unnecessary language constructs. I'm a strong believer in learning a lower level language first to build a rock solid foundation for writing and understanding code. Yeah. You can go both. Yeah, you can have opinions in either way. I think, honestly, it's hard to say, but it does seem like having a lower learning curve is potentially better, so that way you don't give up hope early on. I think like it takes a certain type of person to be so diligent and willing to work through all of the issues in the learning curve. So if you're not that type of person, then Python or JavaScript is probably the way to go. And earlier, so JICOM was mentioning about this. The disk drive was the size of a washing machine in 60 megabytes. That's crazy. So yeah. My favorite programming languages are C and Go. I've been coding for more than 13 years, and I still get excited to run into a problem I can solve in C. Unfortunately, my career in web dev doesn't allow me to use it very often, so that's where Go comes in. I feel that Go feels a lot like C in many ways, but has a standard library to support most of the work I need to do for backend dev. It lets me work in something that feels like C, yet doesn't impede my development speed when working in backend web dev. My primary hobby used to be making games. which C and C++ are optimal languages for. That's where I channeled much of my C expertise for years. Nowadays, as I work on websites a lot more, I'm using Go to build REST APIs to handle all the backend logic. Nice. It's been a ton of fun, and I'd highly recommend to anyone interested. Nice. Mark learned PHP back in the 90s, just building simple web pages, but was fed up with repeating headers and navigations on every page. Yeah, like reusable codes and templates. Yeah. Also started with VBA and Excel and Microsoft Access. Nice. In Finder, did Python before 10th grade. At this point, I wish I learned C++ more, since it does a lot more structure and is easier to learn. My favorite programming language right now are C++, C#, Java, JavaScript, and Haskell. I have a current project where I'm making an abstract syntax tree with C++. Very good. That was a fun conversation. We talked about it for a very long time. I appreciate all of your inputs. But I will leave you with, learn whatever you want. Don't worry too much, because as long as you focus on the concepts, those can be applied everywhere. And there's some interesting, I mean, in these days, you can learn most things on the web. This website, Learn X and Y Minutes, is actually really fun. So if you heard us mention a programming language that you haven't heard of, or you're interested to see what it even looks like, this website is fun, because you can just pick a language, and then they show you what that language looks like and how you do various things. So here we're looking at C++, but we could also go in and look at what C# looks like this. Or we could go see Elixir, which looks like this. So this is a fun website to kind of give you like an intro into what these programming languages look like and what they feel like. And just because you said it, we're going to go look at Rust. Actually, we'll look at Go, because that was mentioned. Looks a little bit... Go, at first glance, to me, looks like a mixture of Python and C. Which is, I think, a good descriptor of it, because it has the learning curve isn't as steep as something as like C++. Very similar how the learning curve isn't steep for Python. And then we'll look at Rust too, because you told me not to. Yeah. Rust looks like Go, but there's more stuff in it. Looks like there's like more type annotations and stuff. I don't know, but yeah, that's the thing. All right, let's get into this week's challenge, last week's challenge, which was a CSS challenge. So last week, the challenge was to implement this using only CSS. I'm going to take a quick break, but when I come back, I'm going to attempt to implement this. And I will say right off the bat, I don't know how to make a triangle in CSS. So you're going to see me struggle to implement this. But in the meantime, I'm going to take a 10-minute break. And so in the meantime, if you want to give it a try, you can go try the CSS battle, and you can post your answers in the Discord as well. Oh yeah, I think I'll go ahead and do that just so I don't forget. Get rid of the margin and padding on everything, because otherwise you're gonna run into some weird bugs. So, all right, I'll be back in 10 minutes. I'm gonna take a quick break, and then we're gonna implement this. So I will see you all soon. I'll leave you with some music, and thank you all for being here, and thank you all for your opinions and chats. I appreciate you. So here we go.
trouble at a rubbles where I came. See the flame shine bright, they were puzzled how I'm saved. I could never serve the passion or the fire or the man off a sight how I am. Ain't nobody asking, I've been basking in my liberty, cause slavery is real. Doesn't mean the shackles gotta be revealed. Fighting with my pen, that's the closest thing to steal, and it's what they wanna steal. There's value in the word, gotta figure out the real. Been juggling and wrestling thoughts in my mind. The influence was heavy, or the faults even mine. Label still persuading like I'm needing a dime. Like my people ain't be dying over gold in the mines. It's funny, right? I'm still numb to the trauma. I couldn't tell if my joy was out of love or what would haunt me when I needed me a hug. That's the realest. Yeah, that's the closest thing to feeling. Yeah, it's the only thing revealing. I'm trying to get me closer to the Lord, cause maybe he can open up some doors while these words get to show you all my flaws. There's poetry in pain, blessing in the change, pictures I could paint. Yeah, there's poetry in pain, blessings in the chain, pictures I could paint. Yeah, there's poetry in pain, blessing in the chain, pictures I could paint. Yeah, there's poetry in pain, blessings in the chain, pictures I could paint.
No, I've been calling, been stalling, been falling, we go again. Timing so precious, a blessing, don't mess it up all again. Money, it come and it go and it come and it go again. Loving is true, it don't go here to stay, it go again.
Well, hello there. Welcome back, everyone. We are going to do this CSS battle, and I'm actually going to hide the chat so I can't cheat while I attempt to solve this. If you want to solve this as well, it's over on CSSBattle.dev. Essentially, you have to recreate the image using only CSS, and that's what we're going to do now. And this is part of our weekly challenge from last week. So last week, we shared this in the Discord, and we have solutions from people, which we'll look at after I do my solutions. But yeah, I saw your message, Mark Boots, and I agree. I'm actually going to do this in Chrome. I typically use Firefox, this web browser, but I'm going to do it in Chrome because it has less style issues. You can use SVG, you can. Basically, it does an image diff, and as long as your resulting thing looks the same, regardless of how you got there, you're good. You're good. All right. The other thing about CSS battles are they typically are code golf, meaning you want to solve it in the fewest number of characters possible, like including white space and stuff like that. I am not good enough at CSS to even attempt that, so I'm just going to solve it, and that's as far as I'm going to go. I think eventually I'll get to the point where I want to minify my solutions, but for now, I just want to get it working. So here I go. Let's do it. I am also going to start a stopwatch. Actually, do they have dark mode? They do. ish. All right, we're just gonna see how long this takes me. Okay. First of all, I don't know how to make a triangle in CSS, so I'm gonna look it up. CSS triangle. The idea is a box with 0 width and height. The actual width and height of the arrow is determined by the width of the border. In an up arrow, for example, the bottom border is colored while the left and right are transparent, which forms the triangle. Ah! Fascinating. Is this what we want to do? We can go down this path. It was the first Google result. So I think we need 2 triangle, or 4 technically, but I'm just going to work on this first orange triangle. And this is a triangle pointing down. And so it says if I do an arrow down, I can use this. Let's try it. Let's try this. So we'll have a div. We'll give it a class of down triangle. And we will update the styles accordingly. So we're kind of there. First of all, we can give it the right color. So we want this lighter orange. And if you're new to this, the colors are here. You can just click on them to copy them. So border top is going to be that orange color. We're halfway there. we have an orange triangle now. Great. Now, I just want to make sure that I'm not missing any of the editor and stuff. Okay, so we got that triangle. We can also do the background color. So the body background can be that color. Very good. Now, let's try to position this triangle. So to me, it's positioned center of the page. So I think I do want to make the body a flex box. And then we can just put its content in the center like that. Yeah, like that. Which means we have a down and then an up. And if we grab the CSS for an up triangle, and we want this to be the darker color. We're getting closer because like those are exactly in the middle. And I guess if we gave the flexbox a height of 100 view height and a align items center, that puts them directly in the middle, like that, which seems fine. Like if now we just increase the size of everything, I am going to create some CSS variables. Like, yeah, I'm just going to have one called size. And we'll go from there, but let's make it, I don't know, 40%. And then we'll use that variable everywhere we have 20 pixels. %, didn't work. 40 pixels? 50 pixels? 60, 70, 80, 90? Okay. Here's the issue. These are perfect triangles, and we need ones where the it's like longer than it is high. Do we have any example of that? For an equilateral triangle, it's worth pointing out that the height is 86.6% of the width. We don't want an equilateral triangle. How do we make it a non-equilateral triangle? We can change... this number, so I think we need a height and a width. Like that. And then if we have a height, let's call it 200 pixels. And then we use that height on the border top. Is that accurate? Oh, getting closer. But it's not 200. Is it 150? Not quite. Is it 130? Yes, look at that. We've got it. Now we just need to adjust it. Okay, so the height of this one as well. Okay, so we've got the height correct. The width is off though. Width is not 100 pixels. Width should be also, I think I want to get I want to get the left one positioned correctly, and then we'll work on the down one. Because I need to get this one positioned, potentially positioned absolutely to where we need it to be, and then we'll go from there. So we're gonna have a div, which is gonna be like the down wrapper, because the other aspect of this is we're gonna need a triangle behind this one that's the exact same size. So we'll give this a class of down wrapper. And this will be down top. We'll change this to down top. And I mean, do I want everything to be absolutely positioned though? Because that's probably what I'm gonna have to do if it's not centered. I guess I can adjust the right margin, I think. Let's see. So if I do down wrapper and we if we want to push it to the left, can we change the margin right? Yeah, let's keep pushing it until this over here lines up exactly. Nope. I have a feeling this is not a good path to go down. It's going to be very manual. I almost want to absolutely position the whole thing instead of it being like a flex box. I think that's what I'm going to have to do. I always go down this route of like thinking the container should be a flex box, but then realizing we just need to position this thing exactly. So let's do it. Position absolute. And then the body's position will be relative. And then top, let's guess 100 pixels. It's not 100 pixels, 75 pixels. 80 pixels. 81 pixels. 82 pixels. 83 pixels. 84, 85. 85 pixels from the top. And then from the left, let's go 50 pixels. Um, 60. Wow, that's starts at the right time. We just need to adjust the width. But 60 pixels seems right. But now the width, let's try 80. $90? A little too wide. Whoa, did I find it? It's 75. Wow. Okay, I've done it. I've done it. All right, it's 75. And basically, we're going to have one more of these positioned behind it. Um, so we'll have like the top. Actually, we don't even have to call this top. We can just call this down. Yeah, down and up. So we'll call this down. And then top will be position absolute. Top 0, left 0. And then bottom will be something else to push it to the right a little bit. And so if we give this, we don't even need a top class. Yeah, we don't need a top class. We'll just have the bottom one, which will push it to the right a little bit. And so, bottom. And then we'll change the color of the bottom to be the light orange. I'm going to create some variables for my orange colors as well. So, let's do this. We'll have light orange, just this one, and dark orange. Orange is this one. Okay, so light orange right now is this, and then dark orange is that one. But what I want to do is I want to say the bottom down triangle is going to have the dark color. Like this. And now, if I push the bottom one to the right a little bit, it should start to appear. Let's see. So if we say left 10 pixels, doesn't work. So, oh, because we need to add the down class. There we go. There we go. And apparently I have the wrong color. So bottom down should have the dark orange on the border top. Did I get those wrong? For some reason, this one isn't overriding this one. Because we want to do that. That's why. Okay, great. And also we want it to be behind. Like that. Okay. We're almost there. We're almost there, everybody. But this left probably needs to be 20 pixels. I can't believe we've done it. So we have the left side. Now the right side is going to be super easy. It's just everything flipped. So we're also going to have the bottom up class, which is going to be the reverse of this. With the light orange. Great. And then we're going to have the up wrapper. We'll have to create the class for this. And it's going to be up and bottom up. There's a lot going on the screen right now, but we'll get there. Yeah, we have bottom. We have down. We have what is? Yeah. Okay. Now the up wrapper. Will be position absolute. Something's up. Oh, we want the up wrapper. That's why. Okay. So the up wrapper position absolute. Top 85 pixels should be correct. Left. In this case, we could do right. Okay. I think my classes are messed up. Oh, that's why. Yeah, I see. So the bottom up is going to be different. Right? Oh, yeah, we needed to change the border top. Wait, or did we? I want to do this one without the influence of the other one, so I can get this right. Because something's weird is going on right now. So we've got our up wrapper, which has position. Okay. I think we want to do like right 65, 70 pixels. I'm just gonna align this bottom left corner here. 80. Yeah, so 80 is like exactly where we want it. Good. And then the bottom up needs to have this. This is the reason why we need border bottom like that. We've done it. Pretty sure we've done it. 100%. Yeah, that's it. We've done it. So basically what I did was I have two containers. We have the container for the two triangles pointing down, the container for the triangles pointing up. We reuse their width and height in these variables. And then it's just a matter of absolutely positioning them to get them in the right spot. But I think we've done it. Let's submit. 100%. Very good. Very good. All right, let's look and see what the chat has to say. Yeah, and we did mention it earlier. You can technically do it with an SVG. You technically can. All right. Yeah, it's so to me these are fun because I get to practice CSS. Like I don't do a lot of CSS, and these are fun challenges because it's also like I feel like these are very similar to code katas because they're like practicing specific things in isolation. I mean, I think the thing I mainly practiced here was like absolute positioning, also using variables, and then also like learning how to make a triangle. But I don't think I'm going to commit this to memory. I think the next time I want to make a CSS triangle, I'm going to look up this article again. But yeah. Yeah. Don't like size. Yeah, I don't like sizing in pixels either, but for challenges like this, it's really hard to do it with percentages and relative. At least in my opinion. Yeah. Yeah. What's up, Paolo? I was trying to... Oh, give bits? I see. I was like, what are you saying? Yeah, no worries. But welcome in. I've seen you've been very active on Twitter. You've basically been evangelizing and spreading the good word of runes, which is good for you. Good for you. Yeah, welcome in. I guess because the point is to complete the challenge, it's easier to wrap around in pixels rather than relative units. Yeah, I feel like we probably could have done a box shadow to get the side thing. I'm not sure though. The diff box. Yeah, look at so my diff completely blacked out, meaning I got everything lined up perfectly. Yeah. Needs more triangles. um. Oh, you can. I mean, it probably is better for organization if you submit in the thread, but it's okay to submit at the top level too. Yeah, we're gonna look at everyone else's solutions now too. So Alka says, didn't use SVG, did it in CSS with 331 characters. I don't know how the top result is just over 100 characters. That's crazy. All right, so yeah, let's look at everyone else's solution. So Hushu was the first who did it with clip paths. I feel like a lot of people use clip paths to solve these ones. And I don't even know how to work with clip paths. Apparently that works though. Because I guess, yeah, clip paths give you a polygon or let you define polygons. So that's how you're basically able to define shapes like triangles. Huh. Yeah, I agree, Craigium. I think that's the thing is like everyone approaches, especially these CSS challenges, they approach them so differently. All right, here's Mark Boots. Mark Boots apparently is really good at code golfing these solutions. Is yours 100 character, Mark Boots? So we're using these deprecated these deprecated attributes on the body for the colors. And then we're using border inline and border top and also filter with drop shadow. The code below is more explained. Let's look at it because this is insane. Yeah, so set the background of the body. The left triangle, the front of it is the border, and then the back shadow is that specific color. So they did figure out how to do a triangle drop shadow. And then the one on the right, swap the colors. What? Where are you using the F and B variables? Oh, in here. This is also weird to me. So, but it makes sense. So you're styling the P with these variables. Are you defining? Where do you even define those variables? What? I see. It's a fallback. So because it isn't defined for the one on the left, you define it, and then you also define it for the one on the right. Oh, yeah, and I've never seen that with CSS variables. I didn't realize you could do that. So you're defining the variable and giving it a fallback value all in one. Wow. That's amazing. Great work, Mark. All right. Target number 14. Let's see how Fat Child did it. So I'm not good enough to play golf. A weird one, as I solved it with a 100% score, but I see some outlines. Let's see. Yeah, seems fine. So they did flexbox it. They have some really cryptic class names. Whew. But I guess these are. It's very similar to how I did it with the containers. I think. Huh. Fascinating. Imagine having a copy. Is there a copy, bud? I guess there is. Listen. Acid Spark says the same thing. All right, Craigium did it as well. All right, I'm not gonna paste it in just so you guys don't get triggered with the copy bait button. All right, got 2 layers. Set the background of the page. A default width and height. Fascinating. So a default width and height of both of these divs, and then they're skewed 30 degrees in the x-axis. Is that what gives it a triangle? Yeah, so if you take a square, you skew it, and then you hide part of the square? Huh. Because then you have a linear gradient. Wait, does the linear gradient give you the... Okay, check it out. So because this one stops, I think that's how they did the shadow. Right? Because like this is a gradient stop and they stop at different places. And then you have a transparent in between. I think that's basically how they're getting these 2 points here. Am I wrong in thinking that? Like, but basically this whole thing is a linear gradient with like very hard stops. Wow. I think that's what's happening. That's my best guess is happening. What's happening, but that's awesome. But great work. Great work. All right. And Mark says, did you comment that in here too? Yeah. You can minimize this whole thing to 185 characters. Fascinating. All right. Shahan did it with a lot of variables I can see. I'm not going to be able to parse this solution, but they have a main, an area for triangles, triangle A, triangle B, C, and D. So they have 4 different triangles that they're positioning in different places on the page. That's good. All right. Gorster says, easy in some ways, but that led to unexpected other issues. All right. A bunch of variables. Very good. Set the background on the page. Every div is a triangle. And then and so this is using like the similar triangle method that we use using borders. And then they style the other triangles accordingly with different colors. Fascinating. All right, Jasper did it as well. Also going to be hard to read this one, but they have div C, div T. So they have 2 divs. So div C with a div inside of it, and then div T also inside of it. So they have a parent div and then 2 divs inside of it. Yeah, I think, yeah, I agree with that, Mark Boots. I'll be sure to mention that next time. Is like, post it readable so I can try to, obviously I could place this into a formatter. I don't feel like doing that, honestly. Yeah, so 2 divs and then using pseudo elements is what Gordster did. Like with the after on both those elements. Okay, Raccoon did it as well. Let's see. We have the container, triangle inverted, and then the other triangle. So a flexbox with a gap of 40 pixels is how Raccoon did it. That's fascinating to me. That separates the 2 triangles perfectly, I guess. Huh. And then they used clip path to get the triangle. Very cool. And then pseudo elements to give like the shadow, I'm guessing. I think. Nice. And Shahan mentioned they did this one as well. That wasn't the challenge though. Yeah, I still clip paths still are baffling to me. All right, Limeoats took a very different approach. Let's see. They've got 4 different divs. I would assume for the 4 different triangles. Okay. Set the background of every one of them. L and D are like light and dark and dark and light. That's what the D and the L stand for. Light and dark, dark and light. Front and back is F and B. So you've got light front, dark back, dark front, light back. And then what does the S class do? It's a before pseudo selector. The gap separates the triangles not that perfectly. There's a margin -60 for that. I see. So that was Raccoon's solution. It's still interesting though, because I didn't think of that. Basically having, because my first thought was to have the whole thing be a flex box to center it, but then I didn't know what to do with the thing in the center. But I basically could have had an element in the center that just spaced the two things, but it was already centered, so you wouldn't have to do top. But yeah. Cool. And then before every div, they are transformed. So this is using transforms to make a triangle. With a transform origin? Fascinating. All right. Alloline did it as well. Selector before. Maybe you can leave off the double colon? I don't know. I don't know. But all right, we got a parent container and then two inner containers, I'm guessing for the left triangle and the right triangle. This used borders as well. Very cool. And then Mr. American Mike did it with SVG. So yeah, let's look. You told me to paste this in. Is it going to be weird? Oh, it says SVGs are not allowed. That's what it says. Does it? Oh yeah. They render, but it just is like, hey, you can't use an SVG. So never mind. You can't use SVGs. Fascinating. All right, let's see how Alka did it in the formatted version. So we've got two elements, A and B. This is the other fun thing about code golfing the CSS is you can name your elements whatever you want. Like you don't have to use divs. You can literally have an A and B element, and you can take advantage of the fact that you don't need a closing element on B. So yeah, all right. So we have the body with the background color, and then margin 85 -90. So I think that's basically like pushing everything down to be the start of the first triangle, like the start of A. And then we set the width, the default width and height of all the triangles. And then the left-hand side is a triangle pointing down. And then he figured out how to do the drop shadow to get the edge there. And then the right one is a triangle pointing up. And then he put a margin on it so that it'll separate the two slightly. This is a very elegant solution. I like it, Alka. It's very nice and simple. And also, even though it's like shorter, it's still easy to understand because it's basically like, those are your two triangles. I think the main thing for me is I didn't know that you could do a drop shadow on a triangle. Yeah, that's the other interesting thing. You'll notice in Mark Boot's solution, so Mark Boots likes to make them as short as possible. So just like you can leave off the closing element, you can leave off the parentheses and the curly brace here because the browser will still interpret it in the right way. And so that would save you 2 characters. Nice. This was an interesting one. I like it. Also, one of the reasons I picked it is it reminds me of some of the graphics for one of my favorite artists, Tycho. This one. Yeah, the Awake single graphic. If you haven't heard of Tycho, check him out. It's except for their album that he released a couple years ago, everything is, there's no vocals. So it's really good, like, focused music if you haven't heard it before. But yeah, all right, I'm gonna get out of here. This was fun. I will say, if you enjoyed this, definitely participate in next week's challenge. So here I posted next week's challenge. There are 3 Code Wars code katas to solve of increasing difficulty. Oh Oh, I should submit. Like, you can submit your own challenges. Is that what it is? That could be fun. That could be fun to do. Like, yeah, that could be fun. Okay. But yeah, if you want to participate next week, I'll be live again either on Monday or Tuesday, looking at your solutions and also solving these live. And then next week, we're going to be chatting about burnout. So the topic of discussion for next week is, have you experienced burnout? What caused it? What was it like? Have you recovered? And if you have recovered, what helped you recover? Do you have advice for others who are burnt out? So we actually talked about this on stream, I think, like last week. We talked about this last week, but I wanted to have a more formal conversation about it and a place for people to put your responses as well. So thanks again to everyone that participated. Thank you all for watching and sharing your thoughts and everything else here. As you can tell, we're really just trying to foster a community here on YouTube and on Discord. And happy birthday, Alka. We'll sing happy birthday before we go. We'll tune first though. But yeah, other YouTube channels might just be about just the videos and stuff like that. Like here, we encourage participation, and we have a nice place where you can go chat and hang out whenever we're not live. We didn't plan a game night like we did 2 weeks ago, but honestly, we might just kind of like do it impromptu on Friday. So if you tune in for the live stream that's going to happen on Friday, if I'm feeling it, which I will be, we're going to play some games Friday afternoon. So tune into the live stream on Friday, and then also we'll play some games afterwards on Friday. But happy birthday. That's awesome, Alka. Happy birthday. I hope you get to do all the things that you want to on your birthday. Yeah, we're only over here on YouTube now. I'll look right now, Pablo. Oh yeah, we'll maybe add this to list. If we ever do view transitions, we'll use your library. I just don't know if we're going to add them to listed is the main thing. But it would be fun to have you on stream at some point for sure. I honestly I feel like listed is also in like a little bit of a limbo. Like I'm tempted to I don't want to get into like a conversation right now, but I'm honestly tempted to rewrite the whole thing with Vue and Nuxt. But we can talk about that at a later time. Right now, we're gonna say happy birthday to Alka, because that's why we're here. I need to turn off noise cancellation though. Spicy. And I will say it's less to do with the changes in the new changes in Svelte and more to do with how they're handling the new changes in Svelte and how the greater Svelte community is also handling it. All right, there we go. No noise suppression. Check, check, check. I also haven't sang this song in a while. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Okay. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Alka. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to everybody's birthday in September. Happy birthday to you. Yeah, happy birthday, Alka. Thanks for hanging out today. And I hope you have a good one. I hope you get all the things you want and you go all the places you want to go and you eat all the food that you want to eat. But that's all we have for today. We'll see you next week. Check out the schedule to see when I'm going to be live. Well, not next week. We'll see you on Friday. I'll be live on Friday to work on listed. And also, we're going to have a game night right after that on stream on Friday. So be sure to tune in on Friday. And if you enjoyed this, join the Discord. We'll all be in the Discord after this, hanging out. So I hope to see you there. Let's get out of here. I appreciate you all. And we'll see you soon, wherever you are in the world. Have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night. And actually, I remembered a thing. Tonight, I am going to be at Denver Script. So if you check out Denver Script on YouTube, we are having lightning talks tonight. Yeah, so honestly, Pablo, if you DM me, I'll talk to you more about it. But tonight are lightning talks, and it's going to be live streamed. So if you're interested to see these talks, go subscribe over there and check out and be on the lookout for the live stream that's going to happen tonight. Basically, I'm running the meetup, but I'm also behind the scenes streaming everything. We have a wide range of topics that people are. I think we have at least 4 talks that are going to happen tonight, if that interests you. So that's that last thing. And also, if you're in the Denver area, feel free to come out, because you can come say hi to me and also meet all the other JavaScript and web dev programmers that are out here. All right, wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night. And until next time, here's this.